Hey everybody, welcome back. This is a very special, installment here in honor of my Aunt Angie's 64th birthday, and it's a day to be celebrated. Every birthday is a day to be celebrated, but I think it's pretty cool that my aunt is 64 because that's a Beatles reference too. But the reference to Angie by the Rolling Stones has been a recurring theme song as long as I can remember. But when I look back on my life, so much of my musical taste and experiences revolve around my aunt. She was my mom's youngest sister, so therefore she, by proxy, was the coolest, and closer to my age, and especially when I was growing up, she was like the one who like did things that were like was like cooler. She drove fast, and listened to good music, and smoked cigarettes. I mean, this is at the time that was cool. It's not cool now, and nobody smokes cigarettes anymore. But still, so I started off with the Rolling Stones, Angie, because that's sort of like her theme song. My cousin Drew often sings that for her, which we love. But the first song here playing is Zeppelin because Zeppelin is the first music that I remember really being introduced to because of my aunt, because of the music that she would play around me. Those of us who have children in our lives, whether they're our own kids or nieces and nephews and stuff, be aware of the music you play around the kids because they listen and then they're going to be influenced by it. Because if they think you're cool, they're going to think the things you listen to are cool. So I was very lucky that my quote unquote cool aunt listened to actually good music. So I decided to make this little video here, and I made a playlist of all the songs and stuff that make me think of my aunt. Starting with Zeppelin, starting with Thank You, which is sort of like... Oh, man. Whatever. I'm not going to pause. Let's go. I'm going to start crying. Because I want... I have a lot to thank her for. Anyway. Including music. So, thank God this one came on. Zeppelin 4. That's it. That was kind of like, I was a kid in her car, driving somewhere. It doesn't matter where it is. It could be anywhere. And, but this tape was often in the tape player. And something about this drum beat and the guitar and Robert Plant's crazy voice and hearing her bug out about it. Often in the car with her was her best friend Cindy, or several of her friends. But I remember Cindy being in the car a lot with us when I was a kid. But yeah, it would just be most of the time just her and I going somewhere stupid. But she always had the best music in her car. And as a kid, I loved Zeppelin. I would make her play it a lot, in the car or wherever, just because it was fun to listen to in the car. So Zeppelin 4 definitely was the my gateway into rock, Stairway was such an intense experience. And she was so cool. We would listen, try to decipher the lyrics and try to figure out what the hell they were talking about, which is kind of sometimes impossible. And sometimes you would just make up your own stuff, especially in certain Zeppelin songs where the way he sings makes it almost unintelligible, which is kind of funny. So I'm just going to sort of zip through the beginning whistle of a... Calm down, Margaret. So yeah, it's being introduced to one of the greatest songs ever, as a kid, introduced me to Zeppelin, period. And then, of course, Zeppelin 4 was the first album that we ever listened to. See, now, just picture it, I'm like a chubby Sophia Petrillo. 1980, whatever, I had this little car, and we were just driving anywhere. Windows down, her Newport 100 probably choking me at the time, but I didn't care, I mean, it's still so good, though, too. This is talk about timeless, it's I had to pause for a quick second. So good. So I made this playlist based on the songs that my aunt sort of turned me on to. So Zeppelin, and then but like her own personal music too. Also, the stuff that she would listen to like by herself involved this legendary album that is such a huge part of my childhood, based on my aunt. So she'd play Carole King in the car, or even downstairs. Her apartment was downstairs. She would play, just a record or where we play, I guess tapes in, the records, whatever it was. And I really latched onto her, and I was like, who is that? And interestingly enough, since I became such a fan of the singer-songwriter genre, whatever, this has got to be where my love for it started, because, I mean, where else? Also, I'll get to it later, but spoiler alert, the first time I ever heard Joni in my life, Joni sings on this album. So it had to be the first time I ever heard Joni was via my aunt, via Carole King. So Tapestry is an amazing album. One thing I learned later on in life is that Carole King only writes the music to her songs, and that someone else, forgive me for not knowing their name off the top of my head, writes the lyrics, which to me is insane. Because I'm a lyric guy, and one of my favorite things about Carole King songs are the lyrics. So what I'm trying to say is this person I don't know the name of, I'm a huge fan of. I could see her. She's a woman, but I just don't know her name. Somebody in the comment section, please eventually correct me, please. And yes, I could pause and look it up, but I'm not gonna. So good. This album is just perfection. There's so many good things about it. And obviously musically it's gorgeous too. I mean, come on. Carole King is a beautiful songwriter. But I just find it interesting that she doesn't write her lyrics. It's Too Late is one of my absolute favorite songs ever of all time. It always has been since I was a kid, even though I didn't really know I didn't have any frame of reference at the time. Well, I sure do now. And, oh, it's so good. Just a line, stayed in bed all morning just to pass the time. I mean, how could I be? When I was a kid, I was like, ooh, that sounds great, because you just want to sleep all day. Now you understand why, I thought I almost broke this. I'm recovering from a cold, so I have to just, oh yes, the lingering effects of a winter cold. Nothing a little Carole King can't cure. Yeah, Carole King's a huge. So what I did is I made a playlist of all the songs that my aunt made, makes me think of her, whatever. So we might go, these are some genres. We're gonna cross some lines here, but that's good. It's fun. Beautiful. Shout out to my cousin Jimmy who bought us tickets to Beautiful the musical back in the day, in the front row, which was pretty amazing. One of the best experiences I ever had on Broadway was seeing that show so up close. So I threw this song on there as a little ode. Thank you to Jimmy for that. Here's Will You Love Me Tomorrow. Now, this is where Joni and James Taylor sing backup with her. And to me, it's the first time I ever heard Joni. And I think that's so special. My aunt's so special to me, period. And the fact that these songs, I equate them with her, are special. So having Joni as a thread into that, I love it. So I sort of picture like young Kevin accidentally listening to Joni and not knowing it. So here she comes with James. But will you love me tomorrow? Chills. I love that. So cool. I had no idea what that voice in the background would one day do to me, but I love it. Also, the Shirelles, spoiler alert, or not spoiler, fun fact I should say, not really spoiler alert, they're actually from my area where I live, and my mom used to say that she knew one of the Shirelles, I don't know her name, but one of them, Shirelle, which I always found that was very interesting. Our family has a nice connection to early rock and roll, which one day I'd like to talk about on here, but look up Joey D and the Starlighters, Will you stay
still love me tomorrow. Tonight with words unspoken,
Right now, Joni's like on the bottom.
you say that I'm the only one.
So good. And then she jumps right up.
But will my heart
Mm.
be broken when the night meets the morning sun?
Perfect. So then we're going to go to one of the other influences that my aunt brought to me, and this was for like 70s rock. And I remember well, see, here's the thing. I was really good for like, oh, hey, Aunt, can I borrow that? Meaning like, I'm going to steal it and never give it back to you, okay? I was a kid. She didn't really care. In fact, it got to the point where she would just buy me things so I wouldn't steal them from her. We'd go to like Kmart or whatever, and they'd have these like, just the music out, and I'd be like, oh, why don't you buy that? And she'd be like, you mean so you could just steal it from me? I was like, all in fun. So yeah, I threw on Peter Frampton Comes Alive here because this just reminds me of when it would come on, like she would get happy, her friends would get happy. So I threw Peter Frampton on here just to sort of like, as an ode to like, I was paying attention as a kid and I knew they liked this. I love Peter Frampton too. I'm not like the biggest fan, but I love Frampton Comes Alive, that's it. And again, very evocative of my childhood and like the funnest days. So Piano Man, my aunt had the Piano Man cover is just his face, okay? Now she had put makeup. I wish I had this album cover still to this day. But it's like his face, but she had like put eye makeup on him and like, and it sort of lasted until the 90s when I got part of her record collection or whatever, and I'll never forget that. And this is one of the albums that so let me tell you the story about the albums, okay? So my uncle, her brother, when he left for California, left his record collection here, okay? So there was all his music was there. Her music got like intertwined with it too. So then when I came along, I had a mixture of both of their music to choose from, and it was beautiful. It was a treasure. It was like absolutely amazing. I learned all my music from that, okay? So anything from before the 70s was my uncle's, and I learned all about that. Pretty much from the 70s forward was my aunt's. And Billy Joel, she had this, and I remember The Stranger was another album that she had. That may have been hers and my uncle's, or both. But Piano Man, she had drawn, almost like put him in drag, which I think is so hilarious. I wonder if that album still exists somewhere. Jimmy, get to look at it. See, I loved Piano Man as a kid, but I really loved Scenes from an Italian Restaurant better. So with these albums, what I would do is I would go to my grandma's house on Saturday with my family, and my grandma had a card game Saturday nights, and I would go with my mom sometimes, just hang out all night. But it got to the point as I got older, I would go there specifically to use her stereo to tape from LP to tape. Okay, so I would play the LP and then record it onto tape. And I would make these mixtapes out of this. And they were great. I mean, it was like the entire collection was on these tapes. One of the things I loved was this song. And I still do. It's a brilliant song, but it sort of like reminds me of my aunt by way of her record collection, by way of making these tapes. It also reminds me of me and Jimmy now because we really love this song. Steve Miller, another band that really reminds me of like my aunt, like listening to things that she liked when she was a kid. So this section here I made of like 70s rock that reminds me of her. One of them absolutely is Boston, okay? She had this Boston album on tape, whatever. I knew like every song on this friggin' album, whatever, because of my aunt's car, frankly. Okay, so good. It wasn't until years later that I realized the spaceships on the album cover are actually guitars in the shape of spaceships. Ooh. Can't help it, you know. Mother Fear. This also reminds me of Time Life Music presents 70s rock. See my Mary Ann walking away. What else did I put? Oh my God. Ready? Give me that. I got the chills. I got the chills as if my back is being played like a Fender Rhodes. Styx will always make me think of. I gotta pause. I knew this was gonna be difficult. I mean, some of these songs are so evocative of a very specific time and place that does not exist anymore, but makes you feel very good, but also very sad because my mother and her used to love this song when I was a kid. So that's why I'm like doing this. Anyway, but I had to put this on there because it's like Styx is one of the best examples of like music I never would have known without my aunt. Okay, we're gonna get this close, and we're gonna go to the next song, which another Styx song that does not make me cry, so that's good. But this reminds me of back in the day so bad, so good. Now, I hope I did this right because it should lead into like, you know, I wouldn't know new wave music or anything close to it without my aunt. I'm not going to say that Styx is new wave, they're not. But that's sort of like synth sound that they eventually adopted is. Now, Too Much Time on My Hands is not, what's his name, Dennis DeYoung. It's the other guy, who I really like too, who eventually was in Damn Yankees. I've been on hold for the life of you, so I'm gonna look over. Is it any wonder I'm not crazy? So good. Is it any wonder I'm staying on? Anyway, so I did. I threw some REO Speedwagon in here because another weird band from the 70s. I'm not sure I ever would have known, but for my aunt. And a fun story: when I was a kid, I went to camp, and one of like the cool kids was wearing like a rock T-shirt, and all I saw was like the letters REO or something. Maybe I was dyslexic for a minute, and I was like, "Hey, is that REO Speedwagon?" Like he was like laying on the bus, and he like opened his shirt up, and it was an Aerosmith shirt, not REO Speedwagon. And he was like, REO Speedwagon's gay. And as a little kid, I was like, oh, God, he knows I'm gay. All right, oh, man. Tell Me Keep On Loving You is not one of the best songs ever. Boom. Yeah, REO Speedwagon, definitely. We used to buy, me and my aunt used to go to, like, Bradley's or whatever, and buy these compilation tapes and eventually CDs. This would often be on one of them. So, and again, I would steal them and under the guise of borrowing them and just never giving back. Don't worry, I got her back by making 1,000 mixed CDs after the fact, so there you go. All right, now leading into the greatest, what just happened? Well, okay, this is good. It went ahead, but it's fine. Here we are if I'm talking about the 70s, the greatest band for her of the 70s had to be the Eagles. They remind me of being a kid in her car and begging to listen to them because it was so intricate. The songs, the stories, the songs told. I was like the biggest Eagles fan as a kid because of my aunt, okay? And also, again, because she liked it, I wanted to like it too. but I like really got into it, and we used to like try to decipher the lyrics. And this is before like the days of you could just Google the lyrics. You would try to listen and think about what the hell uh, he said. So I'm starting with Hotel California because I mean we would put the shit on repeat. Like it was like so good. I could listen to it over and over again, and we did. The whole album was great, frankly. But I wanted to sort of highlight this on purpose because it is one of the absolute best songs that remind me of growing up with my aunt. I put on Those Shoes too because she loved this album. This is the Long Run album, which to me was not as good as at the time. So, okay, this is my reflection of it at the time. I liked Hotel California better. This was not my jam at the time, okay? But now I love this album more. You see, I'm older. It makes perfect sense. She loved this song when I was a kid, all right? I just didn't really understand why. I do now. It makes sense. So, this song when I was a kid, off the Long Run album, I loved it as a kid, just because it's such a pretty song. Now, it's like so 10 times more brilliant. Timothy B. Schmidt, his voice is so pretty and so gorgeous. Do you remember they did that album where it was like a live album and the Hell Freezes Over? He was good on that too with the song, but here is perfect. This song gets slept on sometimes. I feel like so pretty. Anyway, so let's get to Blondie and the new wave, and you can't imagine how this little queer kid fell in love with Blondie and her music, and their music, I should say, of the band. But Heart of Glass is where it all started. It was like such a greatest hit of my childhood because my aunt loved it so much. Okay, it was. And looking back, I say to myself, it's like all these songs that she loved because a certain person was such an asshole to her, or whatever. That's a whole other story. I don't want to get to her personal life, whatever. But like, she got the best kid out of the world out of it. So there you go. I was losing my mind. So yeah, Blondie to me will always make me think of my aunt because also she was a blonde woman too. So like there was something about like, oh, she likes this band Blondie, and she's very blonde at the time. My whole family was very blonde when I was a kid, except for my grandmother at the time who had dark hair. Now that was fabulous. There's no peace of mind in a family, it's just no good. It's easy like you do. And I had no idea what she said there. I was like, what? We came up with all kinds of lyrics to these songs back in the day. Now, from what I remember, the Parallel Lines album was the shit. And this is one of her favorite songs, definitely, my aunt. And in turn became one of mine too. But this opens the Parallel Lines album. And there's like not a bad song on the whole album, if you want to get technical. So this definitely reminds me of like 1980, whatever. Did you go to work or just go to the store? I love her. Ignore Hawthorne, New Jersey's own Debbie Harry. On the again, the Best of Blondie 2. I think we like bought the Best of Blondie 2 just to have like sort of like an all around. And when I say we bought, I'm not even kidding. It would be like, hey, here, buy this, and she would. She was a cool way. Oh, the drums. So good. I remember because of knowing Blondie in the 90s when I met like cool punk kids, they liked Blondie too, and it was a nice sort of like hello sometimes to like a certain type of person that I really liked at the time. You ask me what's my pleasure, a movie or a measure. I'll have a cup of tea, tell you I'm not dreaming. Okay, carrying on to the greatest hits of my aunt's car as a kid, the Cars. So, I don't know anything about the Cars. I know like their other hits. This particular album, though, is ground zero for my like new wave upbringing. Okay, there's nothing about this album that I dislike. Okay, it's like every inch of this album makes you think of like being like the coolest kid in the world at like 11, because I was like with my aunt, you know, like an adult. It's just so weird. You know how you are when you're a kid? It's like, that's the mentality I am when listening to all these songs. I try to be that cool guy for my nephews, pretty much. Sometimes then I catch myself, I'm like, hey, you're trying to be the cool guy. You look like a total dork or whatever, but that's part of it as well. So. Look, my nephew wears Queen t-shirts. I'm not saying I introduced him to Queen, but I definitely encouraged his love of Freddie Mercury. So there you go. Let them brush the rock and roll and let the good times roll. Again, just what I needed. Wasting all my time. Come on, so good. So good. Put the ribbons in your hair. I gotta take a drink. And wasting all my time. Okay, I'm gonna have this playlist now because it's a great playlist. My best friend's girlfriend. Oh God. So good. Like, and I was like, that's a thing? People go after their girl? What? How dare you? You're all I've got tonight. I need you tonight. So good. Okay. Now, I'm not sure if people really know Joe Jackson like they should, but to me, one of my favorite artists of all time is Joe Jackson, based on this particular album, and all thanks to my aunt. She had the tape in her car as long as I know, you know. I think her and her friends were really into him when he came out too. And this particular album, though, will always be so special to me. And the cool thing is, like, you know, my aunt's son was born when I was a teenager, and in turn, he had just sort of carried on the same tradition of, you know, enjoying and loving the same music that we all do as well. I had to sneeze. But, so he loves Joe Jackson too. So it's like, at least there's one person in that generation that knows and loves Joe Jackson. With my eyes, don't you see me? There's something going wrong around here. The whole album is kind of perfect or whatever. So I put on Sunday Papers. Also, this album has like slight queer references, and I would be like, oh my god, oh, so good. Mother doesn't go out anymore, just sits at home and rolls her spastic eyes. So I threw on the Steppin' Out album because while I don't really equate this to my aunt's car and her, it's like because she introduced me to Look Sharp, I always liked Joe Jackson, okay? So to me, this is like it's like a hybrid. It's like, yes, I'm sure she liked the song, like, but to me, the Steppin' Out album I mean, don't get much better than that. Though. Sorry, it's like maybe we discovered it together. In other words, I've always liked this song. I've always liked this album, but I don't think I ever would have paid attention to Joe Jackson without my aunt introducing me to him through the Look Sharp album. You know, as a young kid. Electricity so fine, look and dry your eyes. So good. I did. Oh my God. What Joe Jackson, man? I'm gonna tell you right now. This is my favorite Joe Jackson song, by the way. Breaking out, oh, breaking us in two. You don't do the things that I do. You wanna do things I can't do. Always something breaking us in two. So good. The piano. You know, the more I realize how drawn I am to the piano, it's like so many of my favorite Joni songs revolve around her on the piano. I love Joe Jackson. I love Tori. Some of my favorite Elton, you know. Always something breaking us into. So good. Okay, now, when I was a kid, my grandmother had a boyfriend who had a house down the shore in Beach Haven. It was actually Beach Haven West, right over the bridge on the mainland, not on LBI, but right there. And one of the greatest memories I have in all of my existence will always be driving down with my mom and my aunt from here to Rudy's house, okay? We did it a million times. I loved it. I loved being in the car with them. Nobody else would be in the car with them but me, because it was just, I wanted to be, okay? So my grandma would be there sometimes, in other words, but like I was always with them, all right? Mainly because the gossip was the best, and also the music was awesome, and they both loved Journey too. And the Journey Escape album, especially, weirdly enough, I'm out of order here a little bit because it ended with Open Arms, okay? But that's how I knew we were like almost there. So yeah, Journey will always make me think of like the best times of my childhood. I'm gonna skip to Don't Stop Believing because, you know, my aunt's been through a lot. I'm gonna get through this. Anybody who knows. So the thing about it is that no matter what she's been through, she just keeps persevering and going through it, okay? So this song used to make me think of back in the day when she had her weight loss surgery. She had a weight loss surgery, which was awesome. You know, it extended her life greatly, okay? And but while she was in the hospital, I called her. And I played this song. I played this song for her over the phone. And like I wanted to give her strength in that time, okay? And look, she did it. You know, I'm very proud of her. You know, she's really kept the weight off all these years, and it's amazing. And then a couple years ago, she gets dealt this stupid blow with cancer, and she's been fighting it with all her might too. So it's sort of like Don't Stop Believing is a recurring theme. I wish she didn't have to keep going through this shit, but this song really makes me think that we still need this for her, and I hope she never stops believing, because It's very important. You know. Anyway, there better be some like crazy song next. Oh yeah, who's crying now? Me. Let's keep going. Oh yeah, good. This is good. So let's get to the '80s now, where I'm getting older, and my aunt, and I'm gonna call her out. I don't care. She had these awesome friends that she started working with, whatever. Okay, and I think she started being influenced a lot by their music too, which is cool. Now, when I tell you, my aunt may have, in her mind, thought she was Jody Watley in the summer of 1987. She may have, because she adopted Jody Watley's legendary giant hoop earrings, which were amazing. And all we listened to pretty much that whole summer was Jody Watley. And I became borderline obsessed with her. And who did it? Well, honestly, the world was obsessed with Jody Watley at that time, you know, but specifically, we were definitely, my love was true, still you threw it all away. Other guys will have me, they'll appreciate my love. How does it feel? So good. Look, the world sleeps on Jody Watley sometimes. I'm just gonna call it out. That you met the world. Look, Some Kind of Lover. Oh, that was like my favorite too. Real Love. So this is all like, you know, I want to throw these in there because, okay, there's some Anita Baker in here too. Because my aunt loves Anita Baker. Loved Anita Baker when I was a kid. I have a whole video on Anita Baker, which is a plug from my other videos. Ain't there something I can give in exchange for everything you gave to me? Hello, that's you, my name. Also, my aunt had this friend that dated this guy in his band. Am I wrong? I could be wrong about this. But that's the story I remember. But in this band was somebody who eventually became Babyface. And this song reminds me so much of my childhood, I can't even tell you, okay? It's called Two Occasions. The band is called The Deal. Deele. But that's Babyface, and I love it. And if you know, like, if you're a fan of like 90s R&B, this is, you might, or 80s. This is like the other guy. So good. I just want you to hear Babyface. Here it comes. So good. Let's do one chorus.
I only think of you on 2 occasions. Let's day and night. I go from home. If I could be with you, only you can make it right.
So good. So, okay, I do this as that's a joke. First of all, if my aunt made it this far, I want to thank you because let's just say that sometimes relationships have their ups and downs, okay? And when you know somebody your whole life, whatever, it's not always roses and whatever. So sometimes, newsflash, I could be an asshole, okay? But the thing is, my aunt's a forgiving person, and I'm not that bad, but sometimes I can be. And this is my sorry for 2024. All right? And it's funny because my aunt loves Ruben Studdard. She knows this song, but I want to publicly on my thing here apologize for ever being a douche to my aunt, who is one of the most important people in the world. And as you know, sometimes the closer you are to somebody, the more you can hurt them. So just want to say I love you. This is my song for 2024 and beyond and before and whatever. Anyway, love you. That was good. Also, I want to just let everyone know that my aunt was the original Katy Perry fan. She was the first person I knew in this world that liked Katy Perry and like loved her. So I just want to put that out there because Katy Perry became very famous. Also, my aunt had this thing where when you would call, she was a very early adopter of any technology. Okay, she had like Nintendo early. She was the only person I knew that had a Game Boy. She was a very early adopter of cell phones, and she had an early cell phone where when you would call her, in my case from a landline, it would sing songs to you. Okay, for years, this Leona Lewis song, "Bleeding Love," was the song that would play. So I threw this on my songs that made me think of my aunt list because if you know, you know. Okay, there were others. Okay, but this one will always make me think of a specific time when we spent like a ton of time together too. So I was calling her like 1,000 times a day. Anyway, so I have this. But it's still such a good song. I'm in love with you, say I'm in love with you. Whatever happened to her? I mean, really, what happened to Leona Lewis? She was supposed to be everything. And she was just like a brief. Here we go. I'm gonna do one chorus of this. I'd be like, "Where's my aunt? I need a ride." By the way, it was the best for that. She was Uber before Uber existed. I threw, only she was free. I threw Hung Up on here from Madonna's Confessions album because will always remind me of a very, very special time in our lives too. And as we wind up here, I wanted to just end with this Fleetwood Mac song that, you know, again, I was a kid with my aunt spending a ton of time with her, and she had a whole life outside of it. And she would always play this song and say, you know, remind her of somebody, blah, blah, blah. But it introduced me to Fleetwood Mac, which became one of my favorite bands of all time, too. So I just wanted to say, Aunt Andrew, I love you. Don't stop believing. I hope you know that I love you with all my heart. And if anybody else is watching this, just understand that these songs are the huge foundation to my entire musical life. And since my channel is so much about music, I couldn't go any further without sort of letting you know where my love for music began. In my aunt's car with those Newports blowing in my face. So I love you. Happy 64th birthday, Aunt Andrea, and many more happy, healthy years ahead. I love you with all my heart. Happy birthday.